and we will bring the candidate out. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Gary Ray, and I'm president of Ray & Associates, and we're the search firm that has been working with the board of directors in this process, and I'm pleased to be here tonight to introduce the two candidates. Our first candidate is going to be Dr. Ronald Taylor, and I'll introduce him in a few minutes, but we have a few ground rules, and I would like to cover those with you. To my left is the secretary of the board, Sandra Fetty. She will be gathering the question cards, and we'll be putting those into subject areas, and each of the candidates will be given 60 minutes. And it really doesn't matter how many questions they get answered. We'll in 60 minutes to be fair to both candidates. I hope everyone has a purple and a green sheet of the two candidates. Dr. Ron Taylor will be the purple sheet and will be the first candidate that will be with us tonight. When you get done with the sheets, we would like for you to fill them out, and there's a place outside the auditorium that you could if you would, please turn those in. And what we're going to do with those sheets, we will share all the information on those sheets with the board members, and they will have an opportunity to review the information on those sheets. The purpose of tonight is for each of these candidates to field questions from you on those cards. So does everyone have a card? If not, we'll make sure some people come through, and you can write your question on those cards, and we will be collecting those right now. If you need a card, okay, we have some hands that need some cards, and I know some of you picked up the cards.
Zion, get a closer view of the podium. What?
The candidates will be asked to have some opening remarks and then some closing remarks in this process. So those of you that have already completed a card, would you please raise your hand, and we'll come around and collect those cards that have questions.
What do you want him to do?
All right. And the ladies in the aisles, when they get those cards from the audience, please bring those up. As soon as you're done with those cards, we can bring them up. Let's collect them. Okay, we're going to start with our first candidate, Dr. Ronald Taylor. Okay, you can have a few opening remarks, and not any longer than a half hour, okay?
That's about my normal, okay? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So happy and just blessed to have the opportunity to address you today. As I've told some of the folks who we've met with today, some of the stakeholders, this is not how I like to communicate. Me up here, you down there, and speaking on a microphone, and you don't have one. If given this opportunity, I really believe in balance. Balance has guided me throughout my career. I believe that data is very important, but so are relationships. Understanding that as a superintendent and as a leader, I've been to school, I'm still in school. I've been on a school schedule since I was 2.5 years old. I've been a public educator for 21 years. And I say all that to say that this is a people business. And though we utilize data and we utilize media and we utilize technology and we have fantastic buildings like this and we have outstanding leadership like your interim superintendent and your board of education, none of these things matter if we're not focusing in on why we are here. And that's how our students are doing. Are we preparing them for a career in college after they leave us? I had an outstanding opportunity to visit some of your schools today. I see Ms. White out there. Ms. White, are you? Yes. There you go, Ms. White. At the fantastic Montessori school. Gave me a wonderful tour and got a chance to really dig into those manipulatives with those little ones, as well as at Northeast Middle School today, at Central Academy, and also at Manuel Career Tech Education School. I had an outstanding visit. You have a lot to be proud of and a lot of momentum moving in the right direction. And I believe that throughout my career, I have demonstrated that I've gained the wisdom, not just the book knowledge, not just the information that I had to submit in my dissertation, but that I've gained the wisdom to understand this is a people business and a relationship business. And where I am now, I've built relationships that have resulted in student achievement and growth operationally for my district. As I said, I've been a public school educator for 21 years at every level. I haven't skipped a step, from teacher to assistant principal to a regional assistant superintendent and now superintendent, and that is important. It's important that you can relate to the people and understand, have empathy for the folks that you're working with. I know I can ramble on and on and on, Gary, but I'll just say that I wouldn't be here without the recommendation of your Board of Education, Chairman Howe, and the board. Thank you. And to my wonderful wife, can you wave to everyone, wonderful wife? My wonderful wife, Lisa. I definitely wouldn't be here without her. And I thank you for your partnership in our life. Gary, sir, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Well, thank you. The first question, and we've got many of them here, so I don't think we'll get to all of them, but by category, I'm going to start with you with this question. How do you intend to engage local businesses?
Well, the answer to a lot of these questions and the answers to a lot of the questions during my interviews was listening. Many times these positions that we get in, they're so daunting. There's so many things to do, but the first thing that we should do is listen. Whether it be listening to a parent group, listening to a group of educators, listening to business partners or potential philanthropic organizations. So the first thing that I would want to do is to listen to those potential business partners and have them tell me their story about why they want to be in partnership with us. Have they ever been in partnership with us and it didn't quite work out? We've seen that happen before, right? Where you had a partnership, leadership changes, that partner falls off and they don't feel so great about our district. What has been successful for me in the past when it comes to business partnership is utilizing the relationships that I've built with others. For example, in the district where I am now, I have a very strong relationship with our mayor as well as our state representatives. So they've brought me philanthropic groups like B4Kids.org, B4NJKids.org, and that relationship resulted in every kid in my district getting a backpack full of school supplies at the beginning of every year. That relationship resulted in me being able to send all of my principals to Harvard's Summer Principal Institute free of charge for our district. So in short, to answer your question, how do you engage businesses? You engage them by listening, and you engage them by leveraging and utilizing the relationships that you have with those who are in contact with them. Today I've met so many fantastic individuals who represent organizations. You already have wonderful, wonderful partners some who are in this room right now who are already partnering. Link, who are serving 82 of our schools with after school and summer programs. Leverage those partnerships to see who else is out there that would like to be a part of our success. Thank you, sir.
This question has come up with a number of the folks. Why Kansas City Public Schools? And a little follow-up on that is, if you are selected, what would be your immediate focus?
Well, Kansas City Public Schools, to me, is an ideal fit for the skill set, experiences, and wisdom that I've gained throughout my career. You're on an upward trajectory. You've adopted some initiatives that are working well. You have a stable support leadership team. You've done some investment in your school buildings with the new middle schools. You've done a lot of good work, and your community as a whole is in an upward trajectory. And I think that you're in the perfect place for the experiences that I've had. In my 21 years, I've always been in a very diverse and also what some would call at-risk population. And I think that you have over 89% of students who are on free and reduced lunch, according to the information that's available to me. And that fits what I've dealt with in my past, yet you have a lot of high-achieving programs. So to me, Kansas City is just a great fit. It's close to my relatives, it's close to my wife's relatives. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and I have half my family there and the other half in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're kind of in the middle. What would be my top priority?
What would be your focus?
Focus, my focus. To me, the focus and the charge that I would have would be to become thoroughly immersed in the culture that is your school district. I don't want to be an outsider. It's no fun coming into a district and you're the one person who doesn't know anything. So I would definitely want to have a lot of opportunities to get to know the district, to get to know the students, to get to know the teachers, to get to know the principals, to get to know the leadership in the district, to make myself available to those who have needs in our district. My second focus would be to listen. I say listen all the time because I don't think it happens enough. People get into these positions sometimes, and we've had to fight to get to these positions and work really hard, and we've done things that have worked really well, and the first thing we want to do is do those things where we land, when they might not be needed. So I want to listen, I want to make myself available, and I want to understand your district, I want to understand the work that's been done. I know a lot of work has already been done here in your district with your potential master plan and the third party that did all that data collection and the hard work of your leadership team and your board. I need to get really my hands dirty in that so that I'm able to make informed decisions and not make decisions just based on my previous experience. And last but not least, my focus was going to always be student achievement. Student achievement, student achievement, student achievement. Our focus has to be ensuring that our students leave us college and career ready, which in turn will make us the first choice of our community.
Thank you. How important and what's been your experience in parent engagement?
Parent engagement, you can't overemphasize the importance of it. I was a kindergarten teacher for some time during my teaching career, and engaging those parents on that first day of school when they're dropping their babies off and they're trusting you with them, It puts money in the bank for when you might have to call them for misbehavior. I've established in the district where I serve now the first parent center that is totally for parents to use, and brand new computers for them to use, and supports agencies are able to assist our parents in our parent resource center. I've also added additional parent liaisons for our district because I think that we can pretty much all say that every parent wants their kid to do well. There's not a parent who does not want the best for their students. Now, we might not agree with how we get them there, but if you start from that premise, this parent loves this kid, this parent wants this kid to do great things, we can work on the relationships that gets us to that. So again, you can't overemphasize how important parents are.
Thank you. How do you plan to recruit, develop, and retain highly effective teachers?
Recruit.
Recruit, develop, and retain highly effective teachers.
Well, that goes back to one of the first questions about partnerships. The way that you get teachers is by having a very close, tight-knit relationship with the entities that produce teachers. You want to be a destination for student teachers. Student teachers and folks who are in school studying to be teachers, they need somewhere to do their practicums and to do their observations. And we want to make sure that we're reaching out to those entities to ensure that they know that we are ready, willing, and able to service their student teachers. Really, research has shown that the most important factor to retaining teachers is not money. It is professional development and giving them responsive information that makes them feel successful in what they're doing. So even if you have bonuses or you pay for master's degrees, which are great things, but if they don't feel like they are connected, if they don't feel like the leadership in their school is in it with them and able to give them information and feedback and observations that make them a better teacher, then you'll never retain them. But those are some of the ways that I would go about facilitating that.
Okay, we have a different topic here now on how do you plan to balance the budget?
How do I plan to
That
balance
is
the
might be a
budget?
loaded question, but I am asking.
Well, of course, I don't have enough information here to talk about balancing a budget. I don't. It's a very important topic. You can't have schools, you can't have lights, you can't have microphones and people, and if you don't have a budget, if you don't have a budget that is built on the priorities that are agreed upon on the board and with the community. To give you a little bit about my experience, I've dealt with budgets as a principal, I've dealt with budgets as a regional superintendent, and now I deal with budgets all the time as a superintendent, and I understand them. I understand making tough decisions when it's time to balance budgets, but I also understand about trying to hold harmless those folks, those students who are the most at risk. I also know how to supplement budgets. We talked about how you have partnerships and you have philanthropic groups who are willing to fund ideas that they think are great and believe in. And one way that you can balance your budget is also trying to utilize dollars that don't necessarily count against you. I know I was talking to your interim soup, and he told me about the $100,000 or so that you all get from parking at the Sprint Center. That's a fantastic way to raise money. I see City Year here. I had City Year as a partner when I was a principal. Free help for us to come in and bring more programs to our school. So just to sum it up, I couldn't tell you how to balance the budget because I don't know the budget. I haven't seen the budget, and whatever singular ideas I may have about the budget would of course take the board to review, agree with, discuss. But I can tell you that there are lots of ways to supplement your budget and lots of ways to use your dollars in a smarter way. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We've got some folks back in the audience, we have some more seats here if you'd like to come up here and join the rest of us up here. So if you'd like, there's some more seats down here. And we do have some cards for you. This question I'm going to ask you is off topic a little bit here, but what are two books that you've read that have influenced your career?
Let's see, gosh, two books that have influenced my career. The first would probably be the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read that as a very young man, and it really helped me to see how you can transform yourself. One of the things that I tell students all the time is that you are the only person who exists who has control over what happens to you. Doesn't matter what happens it matters what your mom does, it matters what your teacher does, it matters to a certain extent. But at any moment, a student, a person, anyone sitting in here can change what you are, can change what happens to you. You have control, and that's one of the things that that book taught me. A second book that I read that really influenced me was Who Moved My Cheese? Has anybody read that book? Yeah. That one, that was during my assistant principal time. It really helped me to hone in on group dynamics, to hone in on when you're leading a group of people, that there are different folks at different stages of change, and that change is scary to people. It's scary to everyone. And as a leader, understanding that makes you a better leader. And I know that it's a small book, but it's a book that's really had a huge influence on how I deal with the partnerships that I have, whether they be with principals, whether they be with my cabinet members, whether they be with the community or other stakeholders.
What's been your experience, and what would be your plan to improve student achievement?
Thank you. My experience in improving student achievement runs as long as I've been in education. The first school that I worked at was a pilot school started by Boston Public Schools to help combat charter schools. This was in 1995. And what I learned in that setting was that if you have chaos, then you don't have learning. If you have misbehavior happening all the time, then there's a good chance that you don't have learning. If people don't feel safe in the school, then you don't have learning. I carried that lesson because that's been one of the hallmarks of my career. Just to keep my answers a little bit shorter, in multiple districts that I've been in, I've led schools to AYP for the first time in their history. Secondary schools and schools that have been troubled. And making AYP doesn't mean you're no longer having problems. It just means that you're showing academic progress. I can give you the names of some of these schools if it makes folks want to go back and do their research. The Academy of Vocational Careers in Newark, Westside High School in Newark, Willingboro High School, Memorial Middle School. These are schools that had never reached academic state progress targets in the No Child Left Behind since 2001, when the law went into existence. And it's not that I am the genius that made this happen. It's about building a team, having everyone understand that we're all moving in the same direction. And here are some of the steps that we took with those specific schools that helped them to reach those progress targets. Now, if you don't hire me, you can't use my idea, right? I'm just joking. The first thing that you do is you evaluate the master schedule. Folks who are in education, secondary education, understand that the master schedule is literally the spine of the school. It controls where everyone goes. It controls who's in what class. It controls how often the bells ring, when they ring, And when we examined that master schedule at those 4 schools that I cited, we decided that to try a block scheduling methodology. Now, block scheduling is not for every school, but for these schools, block scheduling worked because what it does, it consolidates the number of minutes in the period. So instead of having a 45-minute, 50-minute block period, you have now an 80-minute, 85-minute block, and you have less classes per day, so students are moving less in the hallways. And it also semesterizes, so students are done with their coursework in just 1 semester. So it also accelerates your graduation rate. The second thing that we did, and this is going to sound like School 101, but we instituted, I'm not going to believe this, transcript audits. You will be shocked at the number of students in your schools who are taking classes that don't count towards graduation. You'll be shocked at the number of kids in your schools who are taking classes they already passed. Transcript audit should be happening every semester with the guidance counselor and the parent to make sure, it sounds like School 101, but you have kids who they like whatever that course is. So they take it again, and no one is concerned. So those were the first 2 steps. The third step is to try to organize your school buildings, the actual physical facility, into houses, so that students aren't roaming all around the building causing conflict when they're supposed to be. If I know that you're in the greenhouse, then you're in the greenhouse, and that's where you are. And those are some of the things that we did to achieve almost immediate student achievement increases in those schools. Thank you.
Okay. Kansas City Public Schools have made investments in early childhood. What's been your experience with early childhood?
Ms. White, what did I do in early childhood? There you go, Ms. White. That's right. I in my previous life, I was a kindergarten teacher, and I always say all kindergarten teachers and all special education teachers go to heaven first. They skip the line. They skip the line, and they go to heaven because they have so much patience, and they understand that the kid who they have today is not going to be the same student they have 180 days from now. That they have to have a mothering, compassionate feel for that student and give that child a chance to start over the next day. Whatever they did on day 1, on day 2 is a new day for you. When I was an elementary school principal, I greeted all my kids at the front door every morning. Stood in the front, shook their hands, whether they were 4-year-olds or 13-year-olds. And I always said right hand, because they want to get left hand, right? Teach them the right hand. And we started our day that way. We started our day with morning meeting, where every day the students had a creed, and the staff had a creed to return to those teachers. And all that did was set the start of our day. So whatever, if I misbehaved yesterday, if I really misbehaved as a student, my day 2, I have a chance to start over new. And I think that early childhood is one of my passions. I think that you'd rather fix it early than fix it later. It's easier to fix it early than fix it later. To be a little more specific, last year our federal funding in my district for our pre-K program came in significantly less than it had been previously. And I applaud my board that they agreed with me to supplement that program with general funds and find the money somewhere so that we weren't turning away students for that pre-K program. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah. Thank you. What is your philosophy on dropout and retention?
I don't like dropouts. And the plan that I talked about a little bit earlier with the whole block scheduling and the transcript review and all that stuff, that's really dropout prevention. What you deal with is the dirty little secret in education, especially urban education. is overage students. When you have a 14-year-old in 6th grade, or you have an 11-year-old in 4th grade, the chances of that student being successful later on is very low. Number one, they're embarrassed to be where they are. Number two, it's very natural for them to be a bully. They're bigger, they're stronger, they have more experiences. But there are times when retention is necessary. But with dropout prevention, the key is to really seize on the data that leads to dropouts. Most states will provide you with the list of at-risk attributes. What makes a student a possible dropout, right? Kids who've been retained, kids who've been suspended X number of times, kids who've been absent X number of times, kids who've been, for lack of a better term, labeled with a disability. Those are some of the major at-risk pieces that end up with a kid who ends up being a dropout. So the dropout prevention, it first starts with paying close attention to every kid. No one principal can be the eagle to watch out for every single 700 kid high school. You have to build teams within the high school. The guidance counselor, the general education teacher, all these service providers, they can have a team, and they're over these 50 kids. We watch these 50 kids. You meet about these 50 kids. If these 50 kids miss 3 days in a row, you're calling in those parents for meetings. You are now the guardian over those students, and you're using the employees that you already have. So it's not like you have to go out and hire a bunch of new folks to do this. The last piece is that we talked about technology a little bit earlier. One of the major tools that we've used to increase graduation rate, I like to say increase graduation rate instead of dropout, because the connotation is positive, right? Increased graduation rate is virtual high schools. If you've ever heard of Educere, E-D-U-C-E-R-E, it's a platform, a digital platform, where it's accredited. It's Common Core based, and students can take courses at their own pace on the laptop with a little bit of teacher guidance, and they can accelerate themselves. We've had students who were 6 or 7 courses behind. They didn't take school seriously. Maybe they had a very serious a very serious awakening, and now they're serious and they want to graduate. You offer the opportunities with some of these things that we said, and of course you have to hold the students responsible. It's their life. You want to talk to them and let them know you're making the decisions. You only get 17, maybe 18 years of free education.
How open are you, and what's been your experience working with community organizations, including the faith community?
The answer is I'm very open to it. Very open to working with anyone who legitimately wants to help our school district. We're open to working with anyone who wants to bring materials or funding to our school district. And I've worked with faith-based groups. We have great relationships with some of the faith-based organizations in my district right now. Being the superintendent, one thing that we joke about as superintendents is no matter where you go, no matter how often you go, somebody didn't see you somewhere, and they want to see you everywhere. And the pastor's life, pastors that I've spoken with, who we're partners with, they have the same experience. No matter what they do or where they go, they're never seen enough. So we partner. They come to our events. When we have, when we were honoring our retiring mayor, I went to their event. When I have my State of the District huge presentation and school showcase, the pastors come out to that event. We have an open line of communication, and I'm very responsive to them and other folks who would like to be our partners. So I think I spoke a little bit about partnership and philanthropic organizations and all that before in City Year and other great groups that we partner with, XM Radio. I don't want to beat that dead horse, but I'm very open to it.
Okay, there's been a number of questions here regarding the candidate commitment to the making the long-term commitment to the children of Kansas City. What's your thoughts on your commitment to the children of Kansas City and your track record on that?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot today, and I was asked that question during my interview, and I think it's for obvious reasons. The average urban superintendent with a district this size or a little bit bigger, the turnaround is less than 2 years. They usually either don't work out or they go somewhere else after about 2 years. So it's obvious that that's a concern of the community. To give you some of my personal history, I've been a superintendent for 5 years. Right now, I'm the longest standing superintendent in Willingboro over recent history. Prior to my superintendency, I believe there were 7 superintendents in 4 or 5 years. But the commitment that I would make is that I want to be here. This is a fantastic opportunity for me. This is an opportunity that I'm humbled to have even close to me and my family. I view this as a destination opportunity. Maybe I'll get this job and the board will decide they don't want me. And that's the kind of thing that's out of my control as a superintendent. And I think that's what makes this job a little bit different than other positions. It's a partnership. My partnership with the board's partnership with me, and our partnership together with the community. But I can tell you that my wife and I are excited about this opportunity. We think that this is a fantastic place to live. And if given this opportunity, I'm fully committed.
What will you do, this is a follow-up to somewhat of a previous question, but more specifically, what will you do to better involve parents in the education process?
I was actually just speaking to one of the really involved parents at Northeast Middle School about this, because she was there during my walkthrough. We had a chance to really talk about parents being involved with schools and how at the elementary level it's so natural for parents to come. They want to come on the field trips, they want to come and visit the classroom, they want to come and be a classroom mother, etc. But when kids get to the secondary schools, sometimes the parents are a little more distant. They have younger siblings that they have to take care of. And the largest issue was getting the parents to be as connected to the schools at the secondary level. And some ideas for better involving the parents is to first make it a unified front. We have to decide as leaders of the building and as teachers in the classroom that we want parents to be more involved, that this is something that benefits us. And we know that sometimes there's a conflict between parents and educators. It's natural. But beyond that, we want you to be a part of this, because research shows the more involved the parent, the higher the student achieves. Some ideas on how to do that. Well, when I was a principal, I had a fantastic lead teacher who taught me, if you want parents to come out, you need to feed them. Because if I have 4 kids and it's 6 p.m., we're going to eat here or we're going to eat at home. And so if we're not going to eat here, then there's a good chance that we won't be able to stay for your late evening event. And I'm sure the seasoned educators here understand that. And most successful parent groups, they already take care of that part. They also add childcare to the meetings that you want to have. If you want to have a meeting, you can leave your children with these 2 teachers or these 2 volunteers, and that way we can have a very successful but expedited meeting. I think also to better involve the parents, I'm sure you have a robocall system. I'm sure you have an e-blast system, but in case you don't, I have a superintendent's blog that I do, and I blog about what's happening in the district. trying to use technology. Something is going on, we use a robocall system that can blast out messages through whatever phone numbers that we have on record. And we also can use the e-blast system through our student information system to send out messages to parents to get them involved. And I think last but not least, we have to use the partners that we have. We just talked about the faith-based partners, we talked about the philanthropic partners. Use those partnerships to make parent involvement fun too. Parent involvement can be a fun thing, it can be an enjoyable thing, it can be a celebration, it can be a culminating activity. I spoke a little bit about my State of the District address. My address, when I talk about how we're doing as a district, operationally, academically, well guess what? I want it to be full. So I have the schools present and perform before my address, half of them. And I have the other half perform after my address so that the parents won't leave after the performances, because you have to be creative. We have Chick-fil-A sponsor it, and they come and they feed our parents, because these are the links that we will go to ensure our parents that they know that we want them there. And the most rewarding piece is after my last State of the District, and it was a grand event. I'm walking out with my wife, and there's a mom and her husband walking out in front of us, and she had my presentation, and she said, I actually learned something about the school district today. And just a simple statement, but you're thinking she has multiple kids in this district. We do all these flyers home, we do all these things, but the fact that she came tonight, now she is a PR person for us to go and spread the good word about our school district.
Thank you. This is a question that all superintendents really enjoy answering, so I'm going to ask this question to you. How do you feel about closing buildings?
Well, one of the running jokes, I'm in a few superintendent organizations, and we have very serious conversations and we share ideas. I always say that the best teachers are the ones who steal the great ideas from next door. You know, unabashedly, if it's going to help kids, I'm going to take it to help my kid. And we do the same thing as superintendents. And one of the jokes that runs around is, if you want to make a school the best school in the world, try to close it. Because when you try to close it, you'll hear about everything fantastic with that school. And you'll hear the lineage and the legacy, and how not only did the parent of that child go to that school, but the grandparent of that child went to that school, and the aunt went to that school, and how important that school is. With that all being said, it's probably the most unpleasant thing to do as a superintendent, is to be deeply involved with the closing of a school. But it's a very necessary thing at times. The community trusts the board, and the board entrusts the administration with the fiduciary responsibilities of making your district as efficient and as effective as possible. And there's so many things that can happen wrong in a half-filled school. But it doesn't mean that the final solution is to close it either. That being said, I've been involved with closing schools. I've been involved with opening schools, opening brand new schools. And I can tell you both of them take a lot of work, a lot of detailed, finite work. And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from renovating schools. My dissertation was on the effect of school facilities on student achievement. It talks about how the conditions of a school impact the learning almost directly. It doesn't mean that every school has to be brand new and beautiful like this. When I went on my visit today, I saw schools that were a little older, but they were sparkling. Wasn't a scuff on the floor. Every bulletin board was beautiful and organized. They put no paper on the floor in the bathrooms. And yeah, I'm talking about you as well. I'm talking about you in the school. But what does that mean? What does it mean when a parent walks into a school and it's beautiful like that? And the custodian has done all that. It means that everyone, all the adults, care about this school. So I'm not going to break a window. I'm not going to write on a wall. I'm not going to break a locker. I'm not going to jump up and down the sink. I'm not going to do things to hurt this school. There's a theory called the broken windows theory. Have you ever heard of that theory? Where they talk about, like in New York City, when there was graffiti everywhere, and the police captain put an ordinance in that they would paint the trains every day that graffiti was put on. They were put up and they brought it down the next day. And how that that dogged mentality, it almost alleviated crime by 20% in the city. Not because painting on the trains made crime, but it made crime, it had a really valid response to it. We're human beings. If something is dirty, then you don't mind making it more dirty. If something is broken, you don't mind breaking it a little bit more. If something is beautiful, you want to maintain that beauty.
Okay, we have a number of questions here regarding charter schools, so I'm going to ask you, what is your approach to district charter relations, and how do you intend to work with charter school community?
I've been asked this question a number of times, and I know that there's been a recent approval for you to have your own in-district charter school. That's you know, been very innovative in the planning, and my entire career, 21 years of being in public education, I started my career at a pilot school that was created to compete with charter schools. And so saying that to say, my entire career has been competing with charter school, not hating charter schools, competing with charter schools. Charter schools brought an element to education of competition, where your schools don't have to be the first choice of parents. I would say I have a collegial relationship with charter schools. Charter schools have our kids too. They have precious kids too. And I want our parents to choose our district. I want our parents to choose us because we are the better school. I want them to choose us because all of our teachers are certified and highly qualified, whereas in charter schools they don't have to be. I want parents to choose us because we have much more extracurricular activities and fine art activities, and we're going to publicize that. Part of the charter school movement is that charter schools are way better at PR than public schools are. And if we are to compete with them and be the first choice of our district, we have to publicize how fantastic we are. And we have to replicate the most attractive programs that are available to our students.
Dr. Taylor, what do you think of the new Kansas City Public Schools master plan?
Well, I think that my first impression of the master plan was the fact that it was based on a third-party evaluation was a good thing. Sometimes it's hard for us to evaluate ourselves. To know that the district invested in an outside entity to do an evaluation of itself showed transparency. It showed that we're not afraid to look at ourselves. It also showed me that the folks who work in central administration, the folks who were involved with crafting that master plan, were very detail-oriented people. That there are lots of really, really small details that are very important in that master plan that are going to affect students for generations to come, depending upon the approval of the Board of Education. The master plan also is going to take, if the master plan stays as it is and is approved to move forward, whether it be 2016 or 2017, it's going to take a lot of courage and stick-to-itiveness for a leader to be able to help the community understand why. A lot of times the conflict with these things comes in folks not understanding, really help me understand why this, why my school, why not that school? Or if it's great, then go over there to that school. My community's been abused enough, go abuse that community. Whatever the strong feelings are, helping folks to understand that and helping to show how this was done in a community with similar demographics, how it was done well, somewhere with similar demographics. And I know you've had lots and lots of conversations and lots of meetings about this, but to me, a very intimate discussion is the way for us to not answer your questions, but write down your questions and go research your questions and report back out what we found. Because sometimes the folks who are really in the trenches, they have questions that are going to help us to avoid a problem down the road. A very long answer, but I think it's going to. It took a lot of work to get us the potential master plan. It'll take even more work to put it into reality.
We got a couple more questions before we run out of time here, but Dr. Taylor, the district recently acquired a provisional state accreditation. Will you continue the work already started to reach full accreditation soon?
That is a fantastic question, and I do not believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater, cutting off your nose to spite your face. This is the wisdom that I've gained from working with fantastic people to understand that as a superintendent, if the board gave me that opportunity, I'm not coming in to turn the district upside down. I'm not coming in to wipe out everything that's been done, the momentum that you've gained. I'm not here to bring in a whole new group of people to start on a new plan that'll take another year to make it. That's not how, from the outside looking in, that's not how this situation needs me to respond. And of course, I'm still an outsider, but I've been a superintendent, and I know the work that it takes to get you where you are. And the last thing that a teacher wants to hear is all that training that we gave you, all that PD that you signed up for, yeah, we're going in a different direction, or a parent who's bought in and really is excited about something that we're doing. Oh yeah, forget that, we're gonna try something different now because I need to feel better about why I'm here. And that's not how I operate. I'm very comfortable in the work that I've done to know that I have the wisdom to recognize when good work has already been done, when there was a strong leader here and a strong transition team here already. I'm not going to go back just for my own ego and undo all that work.
Okay, just a few more questions here. What's been your single greatest accomplishment in urban education?
That's a great question. Single biggest accomplishment in urban education. I would probably say, referencing back to what we talked about earlier, having schools that were in serious disrepair, having schools that were out of control behavior-wise, having schools that had never made AYP or state progress targets, to be a part of the team that led those schools to that milestone is probably my greatest accomplishment. And I hate saying my, because it's not me, it's something that I did. I was a leader of a team that really worked hard and was diligent and had a high level of integrity to make the right decisions, and a great group of educators and principals and teachers who worked towards this goal and saw significant gains in both graduation rate and achievement on high stakes tests. And I started off saying that I'm a balanced person, and we know that numbers on the tests, numbers that go on your state report are important because they generate how your district is perceived. But you're balanced because there's also people involved, there's students involved, there's parents involved who we want to feel like they're part of this district and of that school family. So I think in those cases we were able to leverage both the quantitative and the qualitative, both the data and the relationships and people.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being most highest, How important is the contextualization of pedagogy for effective learning outcomes?
One more
That is a
time.
mouthful. So.
Yeah, one more time. 1 to 10. How important is the contextual?
Contextual utilization of pedagogy for effective learning outcomes.
A teacher wrote that one, didn't he? It's very important. And this is where you get into the curriculum and instruction, right? For all the folks who aren't teachers or who aren't formal educators, there are things that you need as a teacher to be successful. You need a curriculum that is very clear, that you can follow, that lets you know what you are to teach to those kids and what standards they are based on. You normally need also some type of pacing document that helps you understand a reasonable pace that you should be going through the lessons that you're teaching and the standards that you're teaching. And you also need a text that is aligned to that curriculum and that pedagogy, etc. And if you miss any of those puzzle pieces, it makes it more difficult to be a teacher because you're now trying to use multiple texts. You're now trying to fill in the gaps in the curriculum that might not be totally aligned with the standards put forward by the Common Core or the state. So from 1 to 10, 10 being the most, is 10 the most important thing a teacher needs, or is 10 just the level of importance? Just want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Being the most.
It's very important. It's very important. It's very important, but you know, there are other things that are very important too. And being in urban education, that connection that you build with that family. We used to always say kids don't care about AYP till they know that you see ARE. If you don't see ARE, they could care less about AYP or any of those assessments that mean so much to the adults who make a choice about school. So I think that having that relationship and connection from educator to student to family would rise slightly above this, only because you can't do one without the other.
Let's talk about what is your track record on closing the black and white achievement gap?
Well, honestly, everywhere that I've been a leader, we didn't have a large white population. There wasn't there isn't enough of a Caucasian population for me to say that there was a true achievement gap. The achievement gaps that we've seen throughout my career and that we've closed were more so with socioeconomic status, where, you know, I'm an African American, you're an African American, but my mom and my dad both live in our home and they both have jobs. You live with your grandmother and you're on public assistance. There's an achievement gap that can be represented by that population too. And the way that you address and you close that achievement gap is through some of the things that we talked about earlier, through, number one, identifying that there is an achievement gap, right? You have to, the first step in solving a problem is admitting you have a problem. And then once you do that, you can then backwards map. You look at the problem and you say, what do these students who are not hitting our targets have in common? And then you address it that way. So that's the kind of achievement gap that I've run into in my career, because I honestly haven't had a real measurable Caucasian population that I could establish an achievement gap with.
Are you an advocate for community schools?
I may not understand how that term is used here. Community schools, I mean, to me, every school is a community school. But do we mean comprehensive schools that are neighborhood based? Is that what it means? Neighborhood schools?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of the question.
Okay. Am I an advocate for that?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, sure. I mean, I think that least restrictive environment, LRE, it means you're educating every kid as close to the neighborhood kid as they can be. Now, if you have a special need, or if you're an English language learner, you may be educated in a more restrictive environment in a different place. But I think that, you know, every kid wants to be able to walk to school and walk home if they can. I know that sometimes there's a history of redistricting that's based on desegregation or other issues that have left their imprint on school district. I know a school district where the kid lives next door to one school and goes to another school because of where that district line just happens to fall. So I think that the way to be the most efficient and effective is to have students going to the school that's closest to them, but it doesn't always work out that way. And there are various reasons why that could happen, but I think that most parents would love to have their kids as close to home as possible.
This will be the last question.
No.
But you will have time to give a closing remarks. And this question is one that says, how do you measure growth and progress toward recognized benchmarks with respects to students, workforce, and peers?
How do you measure growth and progress towards?
Recognized benchmarks with respect to students, workforce, and peers. That's really about, 3 questions.
Well, it's an overlapping kind of question because benchmarks can be set throughout an organization. We can set a benchmark tonight that I'll be done in 3 minutes and see if I met that benchmark or not. And there are also, of course, academic benchmarks. There are benchmarks for the fiscal business office and business side of your district to be ready to do your budget presentations by whatever day, to be ready to submit your budget by a certain day. But I believe this question is referring to how do you measure whether or not you're going to meet your goals, whether or not your growth will meet the targets that you have set. And to me, that's through constant review. That's through making it, we use technology for this now. When I use Google Drive, and my team and I work through calendars, and they know I put alerts on there to remind them when deadlines are coming. We use management documents that show who's responsible for what within a given task to measure if we're going to hit our benchmarks. We have meetings that talk about, that are based on our progress and bringing the evidence and artifacts to show to the team that we are making that progress. So there's lots of ways to do that, whether it be on the business side, on the school side, on the headed towards your school-based academic benchmarks. I know that you use the NWEA map for the formative assessment. A lot of districts use that to try to anticipate how students are moving towards that year-end assessment. That's another way to chart and benchmark yourself towards your goal.
Well, thank you. Would you give us 2 to 3 minutes, some closing remarks?
Sure. I want to first start by acknowledging and again thanking the board chair and the board members for really conducting a fantastic process. I know that most of this process is not available to the community to see, but there are searches that never do this. There are searches that name superintendents and don't have this part of the conversation. And what happens is, if you're given this opportunity now, people are questioning the value, who else was up for it, and how did it happen. So I want to acknowledge all the work that went into this from both the board and Gary and their group, Ray and Associates. I really want to tell you a little more about me. And I grew up not with a silver spoon in my mouth, not with a crystal stare. And that's given me a true appreciation and an ability to connect. One of my favorite poems is If by Rudyard Kipling. And one of the great lines says, you know, can you walk with kings but not lose the common touch? And that is the trick to this job. You have to be able to relate to people. You have to be able to work with people. You have to be able to get folks to buy into what you're doing, whether they be a $1 billion philanthropic organization or a local politician or the principal of a school or a very, very upset parent. Do you have the skills to de-escalate those situations? And that's what my experience has taught me. Those are the things that I've picked up, that I've learned, that go beyond a degree. I'm an associate adjunct professor at a university in New Jersey, and I teach policy to doctoral students. And there are some students in there who've gone through their entire career just being a student. They got their bachelor's and they got their master's and now they're in their doctorate, and they talk about wanting to do the job that I do, and I tell them, I say, you know, when you get done with this degree, you're still 21 years behind trying to do this. Not because I'm the greatest person in the world, it's because I've gained wisdom that a book can't teach. And I come from a family and I come from a background that makes me able to relate to lots of different people. And I truly thank you for this opportunity. And I really view myself, and again, this thing here is, you won't hear me talking about myself like this ever again, but I view myself as an instructional leader. And that's what I would expect of the folks who lead our buildings too. A lot of times the managerial and the operational stuff, it really distracts us from the instructional stuff. Because when a student leaves your district, you want them to be two things: college and career ready. You want them to have the choice of being college and career ready, not 18 years old trying to figure out how to go back and get a GED. And throughout my career, those are the results that I've been able to achieve with a very strong team of committed people that we've attacked student achievement, we've increased graduation rate, and I've sat in the chair where you have to make the toughest decisions. One of the questions spoke about closing schools. It's easier to go and talk to folks about closing schools when someone else has told you to go close the school. But when you're the person who sits in the seat that has to make the tough decision, who has to be able to stand on your integrity to say, this happened because of this. This is the why. And I understand you're upset, but this is the why. This is why it benefits our entire school district. And I've had to do that in very challenging situations in school districts. And again, I thank you for this opportunity. And I truly, truly appreciate the chance to address you today. Thank you.